Are the Kansas City Chiefs lucky or great? We all debate and discuss on today's AFC Squad show.
You are talking ball with the AFC Squad. From the Chiefs to the Bills, the Ravens to the Texans, and everyone else around the AFC, it's the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network bringing you scoops, breakdowns, and the most comprehensive preview of the upcoming weekend for hard-hitting AFC football with our harder-hitting takes. Buckle up, it's the AFC Squad, and we have a seat for you. No hurt feelings allowed. Squad up. You're part of the AFC Squad.
What's happening, everyone? Welcome into another AFC Squad edition here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you know it's your team every single day. Make sure you grab your favorite beverage, snack, sit down, relax as we break down the entire AFC conference and some of the biggest storylines with all the great hosts here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm Cody Rourke, host of Locked On Broncos. Unfortunately, that's a rough week here for Broncos country. Sarah Bettinger, another host of Locked On Broncos, joining us. Joe Marino of Locked On Bills joining us. Kevin Ostreicher of Locked On Ravens. Tyler Rowland of Locked On Titans, and also Locked On NFL. The Madman makes his first appearance. And Mike Debate, host of Locked On Patriots, and also on the benefactor of sending Chicago Bears fans into a frenzy this week. We don't have the Kansas City Chiefs here represented today, but they're going to be a big subject of the show. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over there at FanDuel. Get a big return this season on FanDuel, where new customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Check it out today, FanDuel.com. All right, folks, let's break it down. The AFC has kind of been a little chaotic this season. The NFC certainly has teams with better records. They're playing a lot better. It's a little bit of chaotic right now. But overall, the number one story seems to reign true, that the Kansas City Chiefs remain at the top of the conference, undefeated, surviving a nail-biter against the Denver Broncos this past weekend. Joe Marino had to bounce out for a quick second because of that, because he's going to make a special appearance here once again. Let's open it up, because the theme for this segment here is Kansas City lucky, or are they great? I think there's arguments for a little bit of both here. Let's throw it to Tyler Rowland to set things off here on today's show. Tyler, you kick us off, and then we'll go in order.
Listen, I think their greatness allows them to be lucky. Like, they win a lot of situations, I guess. I want to say, like, in situational football, they are fantastic. You look at their third down performances in the game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that went to overtime. They weren't very good for a lot of that game, but in third down, they were money. Like, they've just done this so many times. I think there's a monotony of going through the regular season. So yes, they've been a little bit lucky, but their greatness in situational football, which is what really matters. I don't know. My guy Mike from Locked On Patriots, he's heard all about situational football for decades and decades over there with the Patriots. Like, the Chiefs have been a little bit lucky, but their greatness in situations allows them to take advantage of that luck. Because what's the old saying? Luck is where opportunity and hard work meets. And the Chiefs have put in the work. And when the opportunities are there, they take advantage. So, yes, they have been lucky, but I think the luck is a byproduct of the greatness.
Kevin Ostreicher, Locked On Ravens, your thoughts here. Obviously, those two teams met week one. It was a thriller of a game, potentially something we could see down the road.
Yeah, literally by a toe, the Ravens lost to the Chiefs after a comeback there. But is this just the Taylor Swift tax? Does Taylor Swift bring in the money for the NFL, and the tax is that the Chiefs get these wins? Now, look, I agree with Tyler. I think that great teams find ways to win, but in certain situations, we have seen the Chiefs, with maybe a call goes their way or maybe something happens. The Chiefs, they're so interesting, because all the years with Mahomes early, it was this offense is so high-powered and so great. Obviously, Tyreek was there, and they were just putting up 50s on teams like with ease. But the identity has shifted to almost defense with Kansas City, where you see guys like Chris Jones and Karlaftis and Trent McDuffie and everybody coming in. So, look, you have to give Kansas City credit for finding ways to win. But I think what's getting everybody a little riled up is that week after week, it's just like a different thing happens. And I think, obviously, with the Denver game, it seems like Denver has a chip in to win. And then, the Taylor Swift tax comes and takes away from Denver and gives to Kansas City there.
Guys, isn't that the way the NFL is going, though? Like, yes, at first, the Chiefs were this high-powered 50 points, that Rams-Chiefs game, but the entire NFL has changed in a cyclical way, where defense and run game, especially this year, is like come back to the forefront. Defenses have caught up. So I kind of it doesn't look the same, but Kansas City is kind of just gone with where the NFL is going right now, and they're still at the top of the game.
Which is good teams find ways to adapt. I hate to admit that here. Right. Joe Marino, Locked On Bills. His team is the only team right now that's standing in the way of an undefeated record on paper for Kansas City. Your thoughts here? Chiefs lucky or great? Obviously, Mahomes, Allen, they've had some great duels over the last couple of years. We're going to see it again here on Sunday.
Yeah, the Chiefs are great. There's no question about it. They're the best team in football, and they're 9-0 for a reason. It's because they're awesome, and their defense has been better than their offense the last couple of years. And to the point of that was made already, they have been ahead of league trends with even the evolution of Patrick Mahomes from a big play machine searching for those big throws down the field to no, we're just going to get yards after the catch, get the ball out of his hands, and when he's got to put the cape on a couple times a game, he puts the cape on a couple times a game, and they keep winning. Here's the thing that you're forgetting about the Kansas City Chiefs, and maybe you're really not forgetting it, but you're not applying it to what's actually happening. They've won the last 2 Super Bowls. They've won 3 of the last 5. They've been to 1 million AFC championship games in a row. This is the measuring stick for the NFL. Every team shows up to play Kansas City and gives them their very best shot. They empty the tank. It's what they want. They want to beat the Chiefs. And guess what? 9 times in a row this year was not good enough. And so, yeah, they're winning tight margin games. Everything's tight. Everything's close. They're maybe not playing their best football. Well, they get everyone's best shot every single game, and it's not good enough. The Chiefs are awesome. They're 9-0, and don't do it to yourself. Don't sit there and convince yourself that they're not that good. I've fallen into this. Last year, I'm like, oh, they're the 15th ranked scoring offense. They lost to like the Colts down the stretch and the Raiders. You're like, oh, yeah, you can beat these teams. No, they know how to win because they're a great football team.
Man, I did that too. I did that too with the Ravens. And, we saw the Bills, be able to run all over Kansas City in that divisional game. And then Baltimore, Baltimore goes and falls flat on their face. I mean, they're a team that's incredible. And, man, it's been crazy to watch this. But the Patriots, Mike, I know, as you know, they know a thing or two about it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, gentlemen, I feel like old Biff from Back to the Future Part 2. There's something really familiar about all of this, and it really is. I mean, you look at, and I know Joe knows this as well as anyone, just when you think that dynasty is dead, they will find a way to come back and win simply because they're one of the best coached teams in the league in the Kansas City Chiefs and Andy Reid. New England Patriots had that for 20 years with Bill Belichick. They've got the best quarterback in the league in Patrick Mahomes. New England Patriots had that for 20 years with Tom Brady. Those guys found a way to win. They adapted the game. They adapted to the game when the game changed a little bit, and the New England Patriots could no longer be a game management team on offense and win with dominant defense. You needed a dominant offense to be able to win in the NFL. What did they do? They went out and started dominating the offense on the field. That's what the Kansas City Chiefs are doing right now. I think Joe put that perfectly. Kevin, Tyler, you guys also put that perfectly. This is a team right now that is finding ways to win. And look, I'll throw it back to a Bronx tale where, it's better to be loved than feared. Which one do you want? Sonny told Cologero, look, it's bottom line. It's nice to be both, but it's very difficult. But the great teams find a way to be able to do both. Are they lucky? Are they great? Yeah, I think it's definitely a little bit of both. I'd watched the New England Patriots win games they had no business of winning here for 20 years. They found a way to do it. But at the end of the day, I think Joe is absolutely right. Because they find ways to win, that is a byproduct of their greatness. Tyler, I steal a phrase that you just used. Yeah, I think absolutely. The great teams find a way to harness that luck and to use it to their advantage. That's what you're seeing in Kansas City. It's frustrating at times. I get it. You're tired of seeing them pull these out. But ultimately, you got to give them their just due because they're winning for a reason.
Sarah Bettinger, Lockdown Broncos. We've seen the rise of Mahomes really since he came on in his second year, but the year he finally was a full starter there. It was Monday night against the Broncos, the left-handed pass with Von Miller wrapped around his leg. It's like, no, who's this guy? Okay. And all of a sudden, that's been the storyline so far. Your thoughts here from a Broncos perspective?
Oh, thanks for that reminder, Cody. Didn't need any more nightmare fuel, but now we've got it. So, yeah, I think the Kansas City Chiefs, they're historically great, obviously. I also think they are lucky, but, fortune favors the bold or whatever you want to say. Everybody said all the right things here. The question is how does this Chiefs team respond when that luck runs out, right? When they finally do lose a regular season game, because they probably aren't going 17-0, right? And when that happens, when they do lose a game, when this team gets refocused, when they get all their guys back healthy, what's that going to look like? Because that's probably the scarier thing, is this team like having an actual chip on its shoulder, right? And instead of having to make up stuff and reasons why oh, we're being overlooked because we had 6 losses this year. It's like last year ain't nobody overlooking the Chiefs. Like Joe said, everybody's giving them their best. Nobody's overlooking them. What happens when they actually have a reason to be ticked off? That's what's going to be interesting to see, because right now it's like, yeah, it's us against the world type of thing. But when they finally do lose a game and people start calling, the overreacting to that one loss, how do the Chiefs respond to that? I think that's going to be kind of a scary thing for the rest of the league.
Everybody's hoping that this week, and maybe that undefeated streak comes to an end. Buffalo Bills, Kansas City Chiefs, the matchup we'll highlight a little bit later on here in the show. But we're also going to take a look at some teams right now in the AFC between the Dolphins, Bengals, Colts. Which AFC teams are we eliminating from playoff contention on the back end? We'll break that down here on today's AFC Squad Show, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's AFC Squad Show is brought to you by our friends over there at FanDuel Sportsbook. And as you all know at FanDuel, they are America's #1 sportsbook, and they want you to get involved with all the NFL action approaching Week 11. There are some big-time games as there's major implications for the AFC postseason picture. For example, you get the Buffalo Bills taking on the Kansas City Chiefs, who are undefeated. The Cincinnati Bengals trying to claw their way back against the Los Angeles Chargers. And you can get in on the action over there on FanDuel Sportsbook. And as a new customer here today, you can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything that you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get the hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play and so much more on the same exact page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over there at PrizePicks. And PrizePicks, they are daily fantasy sports done the right way. And PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks, they've made daily fantasy sports accessible to all, including you. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. So run your game all season long on PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. So sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, it's the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off? Which ones aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on PrizePicks. So check it out. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Once again, download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. As we continue our discussion here on today's AFC Squad Show, we're going to go through AFC teams right now that are on the back end, whose season is actually over, even though they're still a little bit in the hunt. We'll break all that down. This is, I think, would have been perfect if we would have had whiteboards, right? We could turn this into a whiteboard Wednesday because there are a handful of teams right now. Obviously, the Broncos are the 7th seed in the AFC with a 5-5 record. They actually make this list according to our network as we're going to discuss it here today. But between the Cincinnati Bengals, the Indianapolis Colts, the Denver Broncos, the Miami Dolphins, and the New York Jets, which teams are actually out of playoff contention? Who are we eliminating essentially here today? I'm going to start things off here with Joe Marino, and then we'll work our way through. I'll kick it to you guys. But give your thoughts on that as the AFC playoff picture starts to take a little bit more shape here in Week 11 of the NFL season.
Well, you can bury the Jets. It's over. 3-7. They stink. They're not good. There's nothing that's going to happen here. Their defense, everyone's talking about Aaron Rodgers in the offense. That's bad, but their defense is the real problem. They used to be 10 deep with dudes on the defensive line. They got 3. You know what I mean? That's the problem there. And obviously the vibes are bad. And I don't buy in anything that Aaron Rodgers is selling. And I think you can stick a knife in the Colts. They're 4-6, and they're just goofy right now with their decision to play Joe Flacco. It's completely pointless for them to go 0-2 and have the offensive performances that they've had the last 2 weeks. Joe Flacco's turning over the ball like crazy, which is to the surprise of nobody that watched him last year. Even in the 4-1 stretch that they had down the stretch, the guy was just throwing YOLO balls and got a lot of luck, right? And then they play a real team in the playoffs, and goodbye. Thanks for everything. So I think they're goofy. And you listen to Kenny Moore talking about, hey, we got effort issues. People aren't putting in the work. Oof. Goodbye. You don't have it. So I think you can. All those other teams are alive, and I think the Bengals are absolutely alive. but you could put a fork in the Colts and the Dolphins, or excuse me, the Colts and the Jets.
Kevin Ostreicher, what are your thoughts here out of those teams that we listed? Who do you have your on? Because your team just survived a little bit of a thriller on Thursday Night Football against Joe Burrow and the Bengals. Who look, Joe Burrow's playing MVP level football, but probably isn't going to get it because of their record. Which teams do you mark off here?
Yeah, I'm not sure I can survive the third Ravens-Bengals matchup based off how the first two went. It's just two crazy games, but I agree completely.
Smash the over.
Yeah, I agree completely with Joe. I think that the Jets, you can't buy anything right now with them. I just think it's a disaster over there. And then for the Colts, look, I love Joe Flacco, obviously. Being a Baltimore guy, he did so much for Baltimore. We're long past then, and it even seems like we're long past the Cleveland days, even though it was last year for Joe Flacco. And for me, the Bengals are definitely, their defense, I can't get over how bad their defense is at times. They look poor there, but Joe Burrow makes up for a lot of that, as well as Jamar Chase. And, T. Higgins gets back, Orlando Brown gets back. That offense is very dangerous. I think for Miami, they have a path. Obviously, that started with a win on Monday night, but then you have a couple of games against those Jets. You have a game against Cleveland. Mike, if the Patriots can pull an upset on the Dolphins in a couple of weeks, hey, maybe that sinks their hopes, but I think that they have a path. And then I think the Broncos make the playoffs. I think they do. I've seen enough from that defense. I mean, again, the Baltimore game wasn't great for that defense, but other than that, I think that the Broncos have shown me enough. And even though, are they going to win the Super Bowl? I probably wouldn't say that, but I think as a wild card team, Bo Nix could lead them there. I'd say that.
Tyler Rowland.
I got to ask Kevin a question here. I'd love for the Broncos to be the fun story here in the AFC. But let's be real about this. Whoever's number 2 in the AFC North is getting in, and then you got to think that the Bengals and the Chargers are the other two teams. Like, who are you bumping to make space for Denver?
I'd probably say question. Miami. I'd say Miami.
Man, Miami's not in. It's number 2 in the North. You've got the Chargers and you got the Bengals.
I see. I think it's going to come down to that week. What is it? Week 17 between Cincinnati and Denver. Is that when they play?
You think that close? I think
it's going to be that close. I think it's going to be that close.
Okay. All right.
I'm going to piggyback off Kevin right there. The Broncos, I think as much as I hate to say it, as Sayer and Cody know, I am Broncos public enemy number 1. I take shots at the Broncos as much as I can, even though I should be thanking the Broncos for getting Tannehill in for the Titans in 2019. But look at the Broncos schedule here. Like, they play the Falcons this week. I am absolutely picking the Broncos to beat the Atlanta Falcons. They're a much tougher football team. Then they get the Raiders. Then they get the Browns. Then they get the Broncos. Then they get the Chargers. Then the Bengals. And they get to play the Chiefs in Week 18. And unless the Chiefs are going for an undefeated season, the odds are the Chiefs are going to be resting people there. I absolutely don't believe that the Bengals are 100% going to beat the Denver Broncos here. They have a 1-game advantage already. I think the Broncos have a great situation. And honestly, I don't think that we can call the Colts dead either. They play the Jets this weekend and could absolutely win that game over the Jets. Then they play the Lions on Thanksgiving or the Thanksgiving week. They'll probably lose that. But after that, Patriots, Broncos, Titans, Giants, Jags. Like, the Colts could absolutely reel off a win in every single one of those games except the Colts. The only teams that I'm truly willing to pronounce dead that we've mentioned are the Jets and the Dolphins. Like, those, I think that the Colts and the Bengals, obviously, with the talent, and certainly the Broncos, they are all absolutely still alive. And I would go with the Broncos and feel pretty good about it over the Bengals, even though the Bengals are the more quote-unquote talented team.
Why are we giving the Broncos the benefit of the doubt? And I know that we have 2 Broncos people here, but like, what have they told us? They're pretty good on defense. They got a rookie quarterback that's high variance. I like Bo Nix. Like, I'm in on that. I've defended Sean Payton, but this isn't a team that I'm ready to say is going to get in there over, let's call it what it is, Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow and whoever's number 2 in the North. Like, that's what it comes down to me. It's a rookie quarterback against those established vets.
Well, I'll agree with you about the Chargers.
I'll argue it.
I agree about the Chargers, but like, they're in. We're talking about one spot in the AFC, and I think the Broncos have a much better defense and a much better special teams unit than the Bengals. They are a better coached football team than any of the other teams.
Yeah, what I would say is if the Bengals defense was even a little better than they are, I'd feel much more confident picking them.
And Evan McPherson fell off the face of the planet. The Bengals passed up on a 50-yard field goal with Evan McPherson in that game against the Ravens that a year ago, 2 years ago, no question, they're sending McPherson out there and he's draining it. Something has happened with McPherson. He's not the player that he was a couple of years ago. So I give a massive advantage on defense and special teams to Denver. And with Sean Payton, I just think they're a much better coached football team and have an easier schedule than Cincinnati.
I'm going to throw it to Sarah here, and then we'll kick it to Mike Debate to wrap us up here, and obviously our second portion of today's show. Sarah, your thoughts here, because Denver right now they've kind of held on to that 7th spot right now. Clearly, Colts behind them, Bengals on the rise a little bit. Those are the two teams we've been talking about on our show. Hey, you need to hope that those teams lose going forward. Cincinnati obviously playing the Chargers this week. This is a situation where you have to root for the Chargers, who are already ahead right now in the standings. You can still catch them theoretically. It's only a 2-game difference. But your thoughts here?
Yeah, I think as far as the teams that are still alive, I think Joe nailed it. I would definitely be burying the Colts and the Jets at this point. But for the reason that he's burying the Jets, or one of the reasons in terms of the defensive front being only 3 guys deep, where they used to be maybe 10 guys deep, that's where I would put the Broncos above most of these other teams, is their defensive front. Best pass rush in the NFL right now. And I think it's just going to continue to get better as long as those guys stay healthy. I mean, we've seen Zach Allen have the best year of his career. John Franklin Myers playing, speaking of the Jets, John Franklin Myers having a career year. Nick Bonito playing as well as any edge rusher in the league almost. I mean, at least in terms of, second year guys, or, guys in their first 2 or 3 years. So that Broncos pass rush and the defensive front is going to be one of the biggest difference makers over the course of the year. It gives you a bit of a margin for error later in the season, even when you have a rookie quarterback. But Bo Nix, he's not making a ton of mistakes with the ball. I know he took a couple of sacks people didn't like against Kansas City, but look, you could throw the ball up into harm's way and people would be criticizing him for doing that. So I think he's taking care of the ball exceptionally well since week 2, and that defense and the pass rush is the reason why this team could back into the play. And maybe not even, we'll see what happens with the Chargers. I don't think the Chargers, we've seen them lose some rough games this year as well. So I don't think the Chargers are Sharpie in there at this point either.
We'll see. There's a little bit of a trap game situation with Tennessee this past week, but Herbert, they're doing some things there despite not having a lot of weapons for him, or star power weapons for him to throw to. Mike Debate, are you going to be the Jamie Lannister here and dig the dagger a little bit deeper into obviously the Jets and the Dolphins?
I definitely are digging the dagger into the Jets. There's no question about it, for all the reasons why Joe, talked about, and I think Tyler, Kevin, Sayre, all of us have really kind of agreed. That's an implosion right now. There is no cohesion. There is no camaraderie in that locker room. The Jets defense has definitely trailed off, and that offense is just the poster child for dysfunction right now. So they are definitely down. But I'm not ready to dig the dagger deeply into the Miami Dolphins just yet. I've seen too much out of the talent on that team to lead them to believe that they're in games that they're going to be playing. Now, are they a playoff team? I think the jury's still out on that, but they are competitive and they can make things happen in the games that they play. So I'm not ready to write them off yet. I agree with Joe. I'm writing off right now the Indianapolis Colts, and it's frustrating because you look at the last part of that schedule, and those are all winnable games with the exception of the Detroit Lions on Thanksgiving Day, which I think probably will go to Detroit. But it is very frustrating right now for Colts fans looking at the way they're playing. And again, I go back to what Joe said and Kenny Moore and saying guys aren't giving the top effort. Those types of things can derail teams that should be winning games that aren't. That's a difficulty right now. But Bengals, the Broncos, I think there are absolutely good arguments that are made all around this table right now. Yeah, I'm not ready to kind of boot any of these teams out the door, with the exception of the Jets for sure. And it hurts me to say, but I think the Colts are done based on the way that they're playing.
Can I just say, I think it's crazy that we're willing to keep the Dolphins alive and not the Colts. Think about the Dolphins right now would literally have to run the table the rest of the way, or maybe just lose one. They have the Packers in Green Bay. They have the Texans in Houston.
What's hard about that? What's hard about the Texans?
The Dolphins are not beating the Texans in
Look
Houston.
At their next. Start with their next 2. What's their next 2 at home? Give it to us.
Well,
Raiders and Patriots. They're going to be
of course, but they got to win. They got to win every single game except one the rest of the way, and that means that they have to beat 2 of these 3 games
and get some help
at Green Bay, at Houston, against the 49ers. There is no way the Miami Dolphins are winning 2 of those 3 games. I refuse to believe it. So I will push back and say the Dolphins are dead.
Kyle Krabs, we want you on the show next week, okay? We're extending the invitation. We need
if they
you out
win,
here.
If they win, you might get a chance, right?
Come on. Yeah, Kyle, we need you, my man. But, in terms of that, obviously some interesting thoughts in our AFC roundtable here. But you know what? The moment everyone's been waiting for, the AFC matchup where Chiefs haters and NFL fans alike have been waiting for. Can the Bills knock off Kansas City? We'll highlight some of the biggest matchups around the conference here on today's AFC Squad Show, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's AFC Squad Show is brought to you by our friends over there at Ultimate Pro Football GM. And listen up, AFC fans, remember our great partner, Ultimate Pro Football GM. Well, they're back, and they've added an amazing new game mode that I need to tell you about to get you back into the game if you're not already in it right now. The game that has you step into the shoes of a football franchise general manager and lead it to glory. They now have a new head coach career mode. So on top of getting to build your dynasty by drafting players, signing free agents, and hiring a coaching staff, now you can also get to call offensive plays during games as well. And if you already have it installed, make sure you update it so you can try out the brand new mode. And if you don't have it, you can download it right now in the app stores because it's a must-have for all football fans. I know that you'll love it, especially if you want to assemble a team and build a dynasty. Ultimate Pro Football GM is completely free. It has no ads, and it's 100% playable offline, so you can play on the go as you want and when you want to. And they're offering a special offer right now for Locked On fans where you can use the promo code Locked On NFL in all caps inside the game store to receive a free boost to your franchise. So make sure to get it, as this perk will jumpstart your play and give you the advantage you want in creating your dynasty. To download the game, visit ultimate-gm.com. That's ultimate-gm.com, or look it up on the app stores. Ultimate Pro Football GM. Start your dynasty today. The Kansas City Chiefs' undefeated streak will be put to the test here once again as they face off with Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. We've seen this matchup before. The Bills are the NFL's last hope of ending that streak, especially as they look to try to repeat there in Kansas City. We'll break it down here on today's AFC Squad Show. I mean, folks, let's take a look at some of the bigger games right now around the conference. Kicking off, obviously, with the biggest story, the main event. Kansas City traveling to Buffalo to take on the Bills. The Bills, Joe, obviously, I'll start things off with you because you cover the team. You've seen what this Bills team can be. When the Bills are locked in, we've talked about this. They're one of the scariest teams in the league, but then they have some highs and lows where, hey, they're in a competitive matchup against the Dolphins. Was that a divisional byproduct of that? Or are the Bills still trying to find their stride right now? I know, they got Amari Cooper for his one game there. He caught a touchdown. They didn't have him for the last game. What's going on in Buffalo in terms of this game? I know you said before the show you're going to save everything for this show specifically.
Yeah, obviously it's a big one for the NFL. Everyone's all excited. What the CBS is bringing all their guys.
Yeah, there's going to be there.
Whatever it is, college game day version of CBS is going to be in Buffalo. I get the hype. I mean, they've played exciting games. There's no question about it. The Bills have beat this team the last 3 years in the regular season, and it hasn't mattered. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so wake me up in January when they play again, and that's the one the Bills need. It feels so empty to me that the Bills are 3-0 literally the last 3 years against Kansas City in the regular season. One of them a pretty convincing win, and then the others winning the tight games, right? The things that everyone says the Chiefs get all the good luck. Well, it happened to the Bills the other two times. So it's like a game of high magnitude, and maybe if Denver makes that field goal, it's a little bit different because then it's literally for the number one seed. But I mean, for as much hype as there is, I mean, I'm so indifferent on this game because it just literally hasn't mattered the last 3 years. Now, I think the big problem for the Bills is going to be the health of the weapons around Josh Allen. Keon Coleman's already ruled out. Dalton Kincaid injured his knee last game, and we'll see how he goes. I would guess he won't play with the bye week on the other side of it. They'll probably want to be cautious there. And Amari Cooper, if he does play, it's going to be with a cast on his wrist. So, like, I don't know. Those are your top three guys outside of Khalil Shakir. That's going to make things very, very difficult. So do the Bills have the capacity to win the game? Yeah. Does it matter? I'm not sure it does because the Bills won this game the last 3 years.
Kevin, your thoughts on this? I mean, obviously this is a big game. There's also some other games we'll talk about. Your team's playing in one, Baltimore versus Pittsburgh. You're kind of playing for that third spot right now in the seeding in the AFC conference. And look, the Pittsburgh Steelers, I know we don't have Chris Carter here this week. They're playing well enough. They obviously had a little bit of a thriller win against the Washington Commanders and Jaden Daniels. Russell Wilson's playing some really good football right now. Your thoughts on this matchup in particular?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is a big one, but I understand what Joe is saying because the Ravens have they had the same issue last year where, Mahomes, the difference is that the Ravens do not have a good record against Mahomes and the Chiefs, but it's almost like, you build the game up in the regular season, and it's this season where they play in week 1 and they lose by a toe, and everyone's all like, oh, okay, this game, why'd the Ravens lose? They needed this win. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, does this really matter in the grand scheme of things when you're talking about January? Like, go get them in the – I mean, we can kind of talk about how the AFC top seeding could look, right? The way it's looking, and maybe, if Buffalo wins this game against Kansas City, they have a better shot to surpass Kansas City for the 1 seed down the road. But as it stands right now, it'll be some version of Kansas City at 1 or Buffalo potentially. And then you have whoever between the Ravens and the Steelers. And then I think Houston's kind of already locked into that 4. I don't really expect them to move up or down in the standings at this point. We'll see. But I think that this Chiefs and Bills game does have implications, but the real implications do come in January. So I get Joe's, I guess, lackadaisical approach on this game, because it's like, okay, what are you really playing for besides maybe the 1 seed? But that doesn't even matter this week. So January is the big one. But I guess if you want to establish good habits, you can always do that.
Well, can you beat him twice? That's what it comes down to. Can you beat him twice? Tom Brady did it, right? Tom Brady and Joe Burrow in 2021. That's the only time it's ever happened where they lost the same team twice. So does it maybe help you if you lose the game? I don't know, man. It's crazy.
It's tough. Yeah, I mean, the margin for error for Kansas City is we've kind of built, even on this show, we even said it in our crossover leading up, is that they have a built-in margin for error that even if they make mistakes, they're not going to be as impactful as the mistakes other teams make against them. And that's, obviously a mark of a good team there. Kind of a little bit of a sidebar here, turning it. Obviously, we know seeds 1 through 4 is based on division. Should the NFL change that at some point there? Because I'm even looking at like the AFC South, and Tyler, I want your thoughts on this. Like Houston, they've kind of fallen a little bit. They obviously competed with Detroit, almost had the upset victory against them on Sunday Night Football. But should it just be based on your record in terms of seedings 1 through 7 versus it just being, by default one division?
No, absolutely not. Win your division, get a home playoff game. Look, winning the division has to matter. You're in your group. You should I don't care if someone behind.
For a team like Baltimore and Pittsburgh, who's got really good records, like will end up having better records probably than, a team like Houston. Shouldn't they have a better credence in terms of seeding?
No, they shouldn't. Win your division. That's what you get. Play your competition, play your schedule. And I just want to say, to hell with Joe and to hell with Kevin worrying about what goes on in January. This is going to be an awesome football game. It must be nice to have a team where you're so worried about what happens in the playoffs. Maybe it's because my team is trash. I don't care about any of that. I'm so hyped for this football game. This is like 2 of the top 5 teams in the entire NFL. They always have good games against each other. Yes, it may not matter for your teams in the playoffs, and that's what your mindset is. But for me, I'm just so excited to watch a great football game between 2 excellent teams. And my final point on this is a Josh Allen MVP showcase. Like Joe said, no Keon Coleman, Dalton Kincaid banged up, Amari Cooper, who knows? If Josh Allen can go out and win this, and it doesn't matter in January, but Josh Allen, the type of player he is, deserves one MVP on his ledger. He deserves one to showcase how great of a player he is. And if he can go out there and end the Kansas City Chiefs' undefeated season and do it without a lot of his weapons at full strength, that is where Josh Allen becomes the favorite for MVP in my mind. And I'm so hyped to watch this football game. To heck with you guys and your playoff aspirations.
Kevin, would you give up both of those Lamar MVPs for a playoff win over Kansas City? You'd give them up in a heartbeat. You wouldn't think twice about it.
For a win, but not Super Bowl? You're just
whatever it results in, a playoff win over Kansas City. Would you give away both of the MVPs?
Yes.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. I'm curious how and you know what? I know Lamar would too. Of
course he would. I remember I interviewed Lamar when he was at Louisville, and he was on pace to break every record imaginable. And I asked him about, hey, how important is this? He had just set some crazy record. He's like, man, I'm just trying to win an ACC championship and a national title. Yeah. He didn't care, man. And that was just him and I one-on-one in the corner of the end zone. He could have said anything he wanted to in that moment. He wants to win, man.
Yeah, that's the thing with him too, where it's like, and I know Tyler, you were talking about this. If Josh Allen beats Buffalo without the weapons, does that propel him into first place in the MVP favorite conversation? I wouldn't go that far personally.
Lamar's the MVP right now. He is.
Yes. But I do think that he would trade 5 MVPs for a playoff win against Kid. He doesn't care about. Obviously it's nice for him, right? It's nice. But
I
remember
mean you're going to win the Super Bowl.
There's
no way that you would trade MVPs. Like, these guys could say whatever they want. There's no way someone's trading 2 MVPs to win a divisional game against Kansas City with no guarantee that they win the next 2 games and win the Super Bowl.
But if it gives him if it gives him a shot, he'll take it. If it gives him a shot, he'll take it. I think that's what matters to him.
I don't buy it.
We got a couple of games left here on the schedule. Obviously, the Cincinnati Bengals, who are on the outside looking in, still in a position to claw their way back into the playoff race here, putting up terrific numbers offensively. I mean, between Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, my goodness, it's been fun to watch. Defensively, they've been giving up a lot of plays. They're running into Justin Herbert and the Los Angeles Chargers, who Herbert doesn't have a lot of big-time playmaking weapons around him, but he's making plays to guys, and guys are stepping up. They got a good run game there, obviously, with J.K. Dobbins and playing Harbaugh Bowl. They got the NFL's best scoring defense right now. Bengals Chargers, question here. Is this the final shot for the Bengals if they lose against the Chargers? Sarah, kicking it off with you.
I mean, I don't know that it's their final shot, but I feel like the Bengals are going to run away with this game. I mean, look at who the Chargers have beat this year. No disrespect to beating the Denver Broncos, but the Broncos are the only team 500 or better that the Chargers have beaten. The Broncos caught a lot of crap last week for not beating anybody good, or 2 weeks ago, and I don't understand why the Chargers aren't getting the same flack, because they haven't beaten anybody good, and certainly not lately. I'm sorry, Tyler. I love Will Levis. I love the memes.
Nobody hates the Titans more than me, so you're
there
good.
We go. There we go. So,
sick of this team.
I feel like the Bengals are gonna run away with this game. I mean, I do, and I know that Jim Harbaugh has helped change the culture there. The Chargers fans were really complimentary of the way that they've been, operating games, finishing, doing all these things differently than we're done with Brandon Staley, this, that, and the other. I just think the Chargers, to me, they're pretenders right now, and I think we're going to see that on Sunday night.
Mike, debate, Colts, Jets, is this an elimination game for either team?
Well, I'm given my statement last. Yeah, I mean, given my statement last segment, I don't think really. I don't think you can put the Jets in that category. But I think Tyler makes an interesting point about these being winnable games for the Indianapolis Colts down the stretch. Look, I mean, I may have a little more faith in the Miami Dolphins, knowing what that team is capable of, seeing them twice per year, and knowing that defense and that offense are capable of exploding at any moment. But yeah, this is an absolute must-win, I think, for the Indianapolis Colts. Right now, you've got the Jets down, you've got them down, wriggling on the ground. Step on their throat, eliminate them, make sure they're not in the conversation anymore, and then you can start to make your argument for the playoffs. But yeah, Indianapolis, it's going to be interesting to see now. Can Joe Flacco rebound and lead this team back? I think, in my opinion, the jury is still out on this one. So I'm looking at this game for an absolute must-win for Indianapolis. They don't come away with a win against the lowly Jets, their season's done.
Ooh, it's going to set things up very interesting for Week 12, and obviously we hope you all join us here for Week 12 around the AFC for next week's AFC Squad Show. That'll do it here for this week, but make sure you check out all of these respective shows: Locked On Broncos, Locked On Patriots, Locked On Bills, Locked On Ravens, and Locked On Titans. And as always, we encourage you, if you want your team talked about a little bit more in depth, you want representation from your team, we encourage you, hound your host a little bit, have them get on here. Kyle Krabs, we want to see you next week, my friend, if the Miami Dolphins win. We missed you here, and obviously getting you and Joe Marino on the same show again is always appointment viewing. I want to thank Tyler, Kevin, Joe, Mike, and Sarah for joining us here on today's AFC Squad Show. Make sure you subscribe or follow wherever you get your podcast so you don't miss a moment of coverage here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.